In today's video, we're going to talk about what explicit and systematic instruction is, what it means, and then how to accomplish that in your classroom. So if these are the types of videos that interest you, please click that subscribe button and that little bell next to it so that you're alerted every time one of my new videos goes live. Now, if you're new to me, my name is Anna DiGilio. I was a primary teacher for 23 years, and on this channel, we talk about all things small group instruction. Primarily reading, but sometimes I dabble in a little bit of math too. But reading is my jam, so I like to talk about reading. So please click that subscribe button and join me. So today what I'd like to talk about is what do we mean when we see these buzzwords flying around internet land talking about explicit and systematic instruction. What does that mean? And that's what we're going to talk about today in this video. We're going to talk about what that means, and then we're going to talk about how to actually accomplish that in your classroom. And then I'm going to tell you how you can easily implement this and accomplish this in your own classroom. So let's get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about the words explicit and systematic, since they are just all over the teacher land and the internet. First of all, the word explicit means how. It means how you're going to do something, how you're going to teach it. That's what explicit means. Explicit means how. Systematic means when and in what order. That's what systematic means. So it means when will you teach it and in what order will you teach it. That's basically what those two words mean. They mean when will you teach it and how will you teach it and in what order. That's what explicit and systematic means. So when we're talking about the science of reading and what explicit and systematic structured literacy is, that's what that means. The how and the when and in what order. Pretty simple. But it might not be so simple to actually implement it. So that's what I want to go over with you today, how to actually implement explicit and systematic instruction into your small group lessons in a structured literacy classroom. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to share with you something that I have up on my screen. It's a little bit of a PowerPoint, and I'm going to do just a little bit of training, and then we're going to dive deep into what it would include. So let's talk about what explicit and systematic instruction looks like. Now, first and foremost, explicit, systematic instruction, you need a strong foundation of skills that, again, are systematic, meaning when and in what order, and explicit, meaning how. 2, we need to follow a 3 to 4 day lesson plan to ensure mastery level of skills taught. We're looking for mastery, not exposure. So important. Mastery, not exposure. And number 3, we want to make sure we allot at least 20 minutes per group, depending on the skill level of the students in the group. If you're dealing with more advanced readers, you can absolutely continue doing a 15-minute guided reading lesson with your advanced readers. But for your readers that are early readers or emergent readers, you're going to need a solid 20 minutes of instruction for small group. Let's talk about what day one instruction would look like in an explicit and systematic structured literacy program. Number 1, you have to start with a phonological awareness warm-up. These are quick. This is a 2-minute warm-up of specific phonological awareness skills, and it's done all orally and auditory, right? So in this particular day 1 lesson, now this lesson is the phonics focus here is short A in this lesson. So if you're focusing on short A, that's what the lesson's going to be for the next 3 to 4 days. Now, the phonological awareness skills that you'll focus on with day 1 are onset and rhyme recognition, and rhyme production. Why? Because those are the easier phonological awareness skills to teach. And this is a quick 2-minute warm-up. The second part is you're going to explicitly teach high-frequency words that will be in the decodable reader. So now one thing I want to mention is that when you are teaching high frequency words, you need to explicitly teach them. It's not just a matter of memorizing high frequency words. We want to explicitly teach the high frequency words that the students are going to find in their decodable reader. So important. We want to teach the skills that they will then practice in the books and passages that you give them. So whatever high frequency words you're teaching explicitly, they need to be in the book that you're reading explicitly, okay? So when you're teaching high frequency words, I did a whole video on phoneme grapheme mapping or word mapping. Please check that video that I already posted on my channel. I tell you exactly step by step how to do it. So you could absolutely use our Map It paddles, and these are magnetic on both sides and dry erase, so you could do whole group mapping, word mapping with your students. So you want to explicitly map the high frequency words that are on the lesson plan. And on this particular lesson plan, we have the word by, was, said, and you. Now, those three words, those four words, three of them are irregular, was, said, and you. So those are our heart words. And the word by is a decodable word, but they may not have the skills yet to know that the Y in the word by is a long vowel I. So we call those wise words because they are phonetic and decodable and regular, but maybe they don't have the skills just yet to understand what that word is or be able to read that word or spell that word. So we call those wise words in our structured literacy program. But the other three words, was, said, and you, are irregular, and we want to explicitly teach them as heart words using our Map It's paddle or a work mat for phoneme grapheme mapping. So that is the second part of your lesson, phoneme grapheme mapping of high frequency words that will be in the book that the students are going to read. Super, super important. The next part of the lesson is going to be your sound practice. So this is where you're explicitly teaching the phonics sound that for this particular lesson. In this particular lesson, it is the short A sound. As you can see up here, it's the short A sound. So you're going to explicitly teach that sound using a sound deck and multi-sensory exercises. That's how you're going to teach the sound in day one. The next part, you're going to now do some phoneme grapheme of words that are going to be in the book that you're going to read. And not only that, but you also want to map high frequency words that are phonetic. So for example, on the first 300 fry words and the Dolch words, many of those words, many of those words are decodable and phonetic, meaning they're not irregular. So what we do in our program, Structured Literacy with E.a.s.e, is we make sure that we bring in the phonetic high frequency words from those lists, and we explicitly teach them within the lesson plan. So if this is a short A lesson, we're going to teach the words and, can, that, as, at, had, am. So we're going to teach the phonetic high frequency words that are most often found in texts, but we're going to connect them into our lessons on short A because all of those phonetic high frequency words have short A in it. So that's how we mesh our program, bringing in high frequency words and our phonic sound through phoneme grapheme mapping. So that's another part of our program and how we actually teach it. So the next part of the lesson, as you can see here, the next part of the lesson is reading. So on this part, we want students to practice reading with a short A sound, but what we want them practicing are letters, sounds of letters or the phonemes. We want them to practice reading the heart words, the phonetic high frequency words, and we want them practicing the phrases and sentences that have the focused phonic sound, which is short A. So it's just a practice of applying the skill that we just learned. And then lastly, we want to practice encoding, writing. So now we want to do a dictation sentence for our students to practice writing a sentence that focuses on the actual phonics sound that we've just been working on. So what they would do is they would write those in their dictation book. So now you would give them a sentence and you would have them write that in their dictation book, because now what they're doing is they're practicing the actual encoding and using that skill you just taught in writing. So we want to connect the oral decoding and reading, and we want to connect the writing, the encoding. So that's another important part. So that's the last part of day one's instruction. That's what explicit means. So it means explicit, step by step, in showing how you're going to teach that specific lesson using a multisensory approach. And then systematic, of course, is the scope and sequence of all of the phonics sounds that you're going to teach. And that's how structured literacy with E is built that way. It's completely systematic. And I can show you that as well of what our scope and sequence is. But let's look at day 2 really quickly. So let me switch over my screen and let's just take a quick peek at what day 2's instruction looks like. So for day 2, again, you want to do a quick phonological awareness practice focusing on 3 more different skills than you did the day 1. So on this one, you're doing initial phoneme isolation, initial phoneme deletion, and alliteration. So a little bit more difficult skills than day 1. Then again, you're going to move into high frequency words. Again, you're going to focus on the same high frequency words from the day before and the high frequency words that you'll find in the decodable book that you're going to use. You're going to again do multisensory exercises with the specific phonic sound. And this particular, we're going to focus on the sound deck again, and then we do something called spell a sound in our program. So that's another activity you're going to do focusing on the sound. Then of course you're going to do some mapping again, but in this way you're making word chains in this one. So word chains are where one part or one phoneme of the word changes and you make a word chain. That's during day 2. And then you move on to reading. So this is where the students are now going to read the decodable book that is aligned with the skill that you just taught. So that's what you're doing on day 2. That's when you bring in your decodable reader and you're focusing on now applying the skills that you just taught them during day 1 and day 2's instruction. So you bring in that decodable text that focuses on the same phonic sound that you taught. And that is what you're going to do on day 2. That's what day 2's instruction looks like. This is where you bring the reading in of a decodable text after you did explicit instruction on day 1 and day 2, then you bring in your decodable reader. And then you're going to move into day 3. Day 3's instruction, again, a quick 2-minute review of phonological awareness, phoneme segmentation, phoneme blending, and phoneme substitution. Again, you're going to review those same high frequency words from the first 2 days. Again, you're going to practice with the phonics sound. You're going to focus on the sound deck and subtype of phonics sound review. Then you're going to do, again, a little bit more phoneme grapheme mapping with other words that are focused on the short A sound. So we're going to bring in other words, and then we're going to do more application of reading. So in this case, now we're reading nonsense words because now that they understand the skill and the focus sound, which was short A, and we've already taught them CVC words, now we're going to have them practice reading nonsense words, and then reading the same decodable text, but without any picture support. So again, this is the application part of the lesson. We want them to read the decodable text that they had from the day before, but without any picture support. And again, the last part is writing and editing, where they're going to practice their encoding skills, and you're going to do a longer sentence dictation again, using the high frequency words that you taught and the phonic sound that you taught in this lesson. And lastly, if you want to bring in a day 4's instruction, again, you'll do a quick phonological awareness, 2 minutes, but then maybe you want to bring in a writing activity where it's a check-it activity. It's just a quick writing activity where students are going to write words that are focused on the phonic sound. So it would be all short A words that they would write in their check-it book. And lastly, you want to bring in some type of reading comprehension and vocabulary instruction. So this is where the comprehension piece comes in. Now, if you don't want to bring in explicit lessons on comprehension and vocabulary, you don't have to do that. Let me just come back on camera really quickly. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, especially if you're first starting off with students that are learning to read and you're going very strategically through the phonic sounds. Maybe you don't want to bring in any comprehension focus or vocabulary focus until a little bit later on in your sequence. We include it in every one of our lessons because if you do want to instruct on a specific comprehension skill and vocabulary development, that's where our program differs from many of the programs out there. We will give you specific and explicit comprehension activities to do with the decodable reader that we focused on in day 2, and of course the decodable passage in day 3. We're going to focus on a specific skill, like this particular lesson is on inferring, and then we also add in some vocabulary instruction. So we're continuing to build their vocabulary even though we're using decodable books, which is, again, one of the parts that I feel is missing in using those very contrived decodable books, and that's why ours are not. They are not contrived decodables. They are well-written, great character development, very good storylines that don't lead to that contrived language, because we build a base of high-frequency words. That's how our program differs. So we can bring in the comprehension skills and strategies, and of course, vocabulary development and instruction as well. So that's what day 4's instruction looks like. So I wanted to show what it means by explicit and systematic instruction, because I know those words are just floating all over Teacherland and the internet about it has to be explicit and systematic. Now, our program, Structured Literacy with Ease, is just that. It is an explicit and systematic word study and phonics program that includes all of the decodable readers for every single lesson in our program. Our program starts with a sound sequence. That's how our program starts. So this is your introduction. This is your kindergarten introduction. Even your first grade introduction, we want to go through a sound sequence to make sure they have all the letters of the alphabets and the sounds of the alphabet, including the short vowel sounds. So we start with a sound sequence, and then what we do is we move into our readiness sequence, which is 109 high-frequency words that we very meticulously and carefully and explicitly assess, and then we map. We word map high-frequency words so that they're coming into sequence 1 with a very large bank of high-frequency words. It's the 109 most common high-frequency words that are found in students' texts that they read. So that's our readiness sequence that we included in our program, and it's really what sets us apart from many, many other programs. We absolutely explicitly teach 109 words based on a very specific assessment that we provide for you, and that allows you to pull skill groups with your students to teach the specific words they don't know explicitly. And then that's when you can start moving into sequence 1, where we're going into a very explicit scope and sequence. So just to give you a little bit of a quick overhaul or a quick overview, when we're looking at sequence 1, we're teaching, not only are we teaching isolated sounds, we're also teaching spelling rules, we're also teaching affixes, and we're teaching syllable rules and division, because that's very, very important. So all of those 4 different types of lessons are found in our Structured Literacy with Ease program. So in sequence 1, for example, we're going into, our first lesson is a CVC syllable lesson. So we teach that, and then we go into short vowel A, short vowel I, then we bring in consonants B, D, G, and N. Then we go into consonants B and D, short vowel O, consonants H, K, R, short vowel U, consonants J, L, V, and then we go into a spelling rule. And then we go to short vowel E, consonants W, K, S, Y, and Z, K, S being the X. We do a short vowel review, and then we also we do a spelling rule, is words beginning with K. So that's like an example of what sequence 1 is. Then sequence 2, again, very, very systematic, and every single skill builds on the skills before. Additionally, all of our books scaffold and spiral with the high-frequency words. So not only are they getting high-frequency words that are phonetic and irregular, but we build them in directly to each lesson. So we pull the phonetic high-frequency words out of our list. We have something called an e.a.s.e list, which is about 350 words that we will include in our entire program that the students will leave the program with. They have this really large bank of 350 e.a.s.e words, which are pulled from Fry and Dolch. So they really have a solid knowledge bank of high-frequency words that they've been explicitly taught. That's the difference. It's all about explicit instruction with the how using phoneme grapheme mapping. Again, if you haven't seen my other video on word mapping, please go and check that out. I go step by step and give you a freebie on how to do it in your classroom as well. So my friends, that is what we mean by explicit and systematic instruction in a structured literacy program. And I hope that you find this video helpful. And if you are interested, please check out Guided Readers. We have our entire Structured Literacy with Ease program ready for you up on our site, and it is incredible. It is extremely well made. It's creative, and it's going to get results with your students, especially those students that struggle with phonics or may have some type of learning disability like dyslexia. So we make sure we have very explicit lessons in our program. Additionally, don't forget, all of our students come in on very different levels when they come into our classroom. When I taught second grade, I taught second grade for over 23 years. I had students that came into my second grade classroom reading on a kindergarten level, and I had students come into my second grade class that were reading on a fifth grade level. That's a huge discrepancy in skill ability in one classroom. So differentiation was the name of the game in my classroom. And what Guided Readers does is it easily bridges the gap between your structured literacy approach for students that need that very explicit and systematic phonics instruction, and then bridges the gap into guided reading. And we give you over 2,000 books that are wonderfully written, gorgeously illustrated guided reading books and leveled readers that you then can bring in for those children that are ready for that level of instruction. Once they have a solid, explicit, and systematic base of phonics and word study, then they can move into those leveled readers. And that's what Guided Readers does. It bridges the gap between that structured literacy, explicit, and systematic instruction into guided reading, where students are moving more into that word level or word reading level of reading. So that's how we bridge the gap in Guided Readers. We give you everything you'll need to make sure that you have all of the materials and the explicit and systematic structure that you'll need in a program, and that easily lets you move into utilizing leveled readers in your classroom for students that are ready for that level of instruction. So I hope this video helps. I hope it gave you a great example of what explicit and systematic instruction looks like and how you can accomplish it in your own classroom. Thank you so much for watching. And again, please click that subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you are alerted every time one of my new videos goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.